Welcome to the Runes of Ranudar. This is an episodic fantasy fiction currently being published on Royal Road, and there's a link below to Royal Road in the description. A brief recap of our previous episode. Our intrepid adventurers, Shellah, Jonas, Nessa, and Lowell, have set off on their journey to Mundy Head, where the first mysterious rune is believed to be. On the way, though, they are visited by the Shieling Isle's native specter, the Hogboon. And now, Chapter 8. "You saw a Hogboon!" exclaimed Lowell, as Shellah and Jonas apprised them of the previous night's visitor. "It came to the camp?" "It had the rotting head of a ram." Jonas gestured horns with his hands. "It warned us not to approach the burial mound of its master." After stowing the mast and sail, Shellah carefully arranged their gear in the boat. "It's not too late to return. Hoarfast, Lowell's home island, is directly across the channel in the distance, or we can sail back the way we came." "No," said Nessa. "We made it this far. I'm not going to be scared off by some specter made of weeds and old sheep parts. This is why I've hired two, in theory, brave swordsmen. Lowell, dig into your books and see if there's anything useful in there before Shellah puts them away." Shellah kicked a bundle towards Lowell. "They're in here. Be quick." She picked up a peculiar double-ended oar. "Lowell will already know how to use one of these, so you two come over and watch me demonstrate. Nessa, I have gloves for you. You'll want to put those on." Shellah handed them each a paddle and then held her own in two hands. "You won't need a death grip, but you will need both hands. Paddling strength comes from your belly, not your arms. And remember, no matter what happens, nose over belly, belly over the center of the boat. Sit up straight. These longer boats are very stable, and we're carrying a lot of weight, which will further help with that. We'll get plenty of gentle practice in the marsh first, so keep that in mind." Shellah thought ahead to the arch and the chasm. "After that, though, just focus on what Lowell and I tell you. This is why we're fore and aft. Always nose over belly, belly over the center of the boat." Lowell shook his head, handing the satchel of books back to Shellah. "Nope, nothing interesting. I imagine we'll get a closer look at the Hogboon at the next camp." "Great," said Jonas. "This is our last chance to turn back," offered Shellah as she stowed that last bag. "Otherwise, we need to depart now, or we'll lose the tide, and it's going to be a lot harder paddling." Nessa stretched her arms and paddled up into the air over her head. "Let's go." Shellah and Jonas pushed the boat into the water. Lowell took his seat in the bow, and Jonas helped Nessa into the center of the craft. Shellah gave the stern one last shove before she hopped into the rear. "Everyone sweep right, then left. Nessa, turn your paddle around. It's backwards. Let's get into the marsh." As Shellah predicted, the waters in the marsh were placid. They kept to the broadest channel, and after a little coordination, were soon paddling smoothly through the tall sunlit grasses. Songs of seabird chatter greeted them. The occasional curious otter poked its head up from the water. Shellah reminded everyone to sip water from their skins. Before long, the grasses started to subside, and they could see the choppy waters of the Shielings Sea and the midday sun reflecting off the black basalt cliffs of East Craddock. "Everyone row hard, right side, now!" Shellah shouted. "We're heading into that crack." The boat lurched left towards the cliff face of West Craddock, and a wave splashed them from the starboard side. Nessa squealed. Shellah braced her paddle back hard on the left, and the long pointed bow turned into what looked to be a blinding bright square at the base of the dark cliff. "Due an arch!" exclaimed Lowell. The surf pushed them into the tunnel. Suddenly the waters below smoothed, lit an eerie turquoise blue from the light ahead. They all blinked as they paddled towards the sunshine. Soon they popped out into an eddy tucked between the enormous cliffs of the Craddocks and Auchendy Isle. The sea glowed around them, arcs of sunlight bouncing off the surrounding sheer basalt walls and illuminating the blue moon jellies floating in the waters. They could hear strong surf echoing in the far distance. White seabirds cried as they soared from nests far overhead. They sat silent for a moment, stunned. "Those are Krita," Shellah said, breaking the spell. "Keep your hoods up, they will poop on you." "Is now a good time to eat something?" asked Jonas, rubbing his hands. Nessa also placed her paddle down. "Great idea," agreed Shellah. "Let's take a short break. We can't linger, though. We won't be able to navigate the chasm against the tide." After eating a quick lunch of scones and hard cheese, they resumed their course through the inlet along the tall, algal-frosted black walls of East Craddock. The swells increased in size, slow-rolling hummocks of dark teal water dotted with jellyfish. Shellah pointed to a barely visible break in the cliffs to the east. See that big patch of sea foam there? That's the base of the chasm, a very narrow channel between Auchendy and East Craddock. If we're lucky, the swell will just push us through. It will be barely wider than our boat in parts, and the sea will get a lot rougher towards the east end. Jonas and Nessa, keep your paddles up and rest until we tell you otherwise. Lowell and I will navigate. And if I remember correctly, said Lowell, we won't have much light either, even though it's midday. But it's straight, or nearly so. We just follow the light. And the walls are so tall nobody will see us or hear us from above if any reavers are up there and happen to be looking. As we exit, though, we'll keep left as close to the Auchendy cliffs as safely possible and row north as fast as we can behind the sea stacks. It's not going to be easy against the afternoon surf, but East Craddock has a beach not far south from there, known popular with the reavers. We'll need to be quick. The tidal current soon pushed them into the woolly sea foam at the foot of the chasm. Before long, the light inside dwindled to a fine white ribbon dancing on the water. The swells and foam slowly lifted and dropped them in the darkness. Nothing could be heard over the echoing crash of the surf. Paddling reflexively, Shellah depended on Lowell in the bow to spot and steer them around any obstacles in the water as he followed the light. On occasion, dark passages yawned to either side, smelling of seaweed and whatever else got trapped in there to rot. Shellah paddled past them, remembering old stories about how the ferryman used those caves to usher his passengers into the afterworld. Everyone pulled up their hoods tightly against the spray which dripped from some unseen distance above. Eventually, their exit grew brighter, the afternoon breeze stirring the mist in the chasm. The increasing swell scraped the side of the canoe against the cliff wall. Shellah reached forward and tapped Jonas on the shoulder. Get ready. She had to shout over the noise of the nearby waves. He poked Ness in turn. Paddle hard right side! She hoped she was heard as the rear swells bounced their vessel into the confused, oncoming eastern surf. Boulders and steep cliffs rose on either side. Blinded by the sun, she braced for the hard turn to guide them into the channel behind the first sea stack to the north. They battled the waves, rocks, and currents until behind one sea stack a small dark opening appeared. Before anyone could exclaim, Shellah used all of her strength to steer them into the little sea cave. A wave jostled them off the sides of the cavern wall, but soon they were within. The interior's red, slimy algae and white rocky bands gave the uncanny appearance of being within a sea monster's gummy jaws. Ew, said Jonas. What the hell, Shellah? Just a moment, it will all become clear. She could see Lowell nod in agreement up front. The water grew shallow, and they entered into a sheltered sandy beach nestled within the foot of the cliff. Shellah hopped out of the rear of the boat and pushed it onto the shore. She sighed in deep relief as the others stiffly exited, stretched, and rubbed their sore hands. We made it, everyone. Welcome to Auchendy's mouth. We'll camp here for the night. If we're quiet and don't light any fires, nobody will know that we're here. Except the hog boon, clarified Jonas. Except the hog boon, confirmed Shellah. Shellah was startled by a rustling noise behind her. She drew her blade, but was immediately relieved to see it was just Lowell exiting the tent. Whew, she sharply exhaled. Any sign of our hog boon? He asked as he settled on a rock to sit. Shellah resheathed her sword and did a quick circuit of their camp in the tiny patch of beach grass to double-check. Nothing, it's been quiet. Shellah joined Lowell on the rock. You should go back to bed. Tomorrow's going to be a long day. She pointed up at the night sky, and it's getting overcast. Let's hope that weather stays well offshore. Something's been bothering me about the hog boon and whatever this burial might be, and I need to talk it through with a fellow Shielings, said Lowell. We're on Auchendy now, yes? Shellah nodded. Most of the mounds on Mundy Head are, per legend, of the Auchendy people. The riddle cites where Colne doth dwell. But Auchendy always kept the traditions of our oldest people. They're settled on the north side of the island, past some significant barren hills. As with the outer Shielings, the old Laren Empire never extended to them. Auchendy never worshipped Colne. To them, that cave has always been associated with Finna. Huh, weird. But there's possibly an association with Craddock, which was part of ancient Laren, Lowell continued. We just passed through Trua's chasm, named for Trua Craddock. Trua and her children were murdered by her husband, Meal Craddock, who bound them all together into a cart and pushed them into the chasm to die as part of a sorceress' right to build his own power. After he sacrificed his family to Colne, he and his followers were chased from the island, possibly to Mundy, and were never seen again. I think the approximate age of the tale and that of the riddles are analogous. And what's the tribal symbol of the Craddocks? The ram, exclaimed Shellah. That's a stretch, though. That thing could just make itself from whatever's laying around. Auchendy's is the aurochs. I imagine their hogbowen must have different horns, Lowell shrugged. Anyway, something to look for when we get atop the head. This might also explain why we got a visitation on Craddock Beach and not here thus far, if the hogboon is not in Auchendy and has no ties to this island. Shellah chuckled. Or maybe it figured after the first warning, why would anyone be so stupid to still come? Lowell laughed too. He rose to return to the tent. More fun tomorrow. He lifted the flap to the tent and then suddenly turned. Oh, another thing I just thought of. If it was wearing a plaid, he said as he tapped the base of his throat, it might have a clan badge. Well, how does it even know about us? Shellah asked. We're not there on the head actively messing with its grave. How does it know? Lowell looked into the tent for a moment, then back at Shellah. That's been worrying me too, he whispered. Keep an eye on Nessa. They woke to a gray and misty dawn. Everything was covered with dew. Shellah shook out her plaid cloak, which did little to dry it. Do we need to pack everything? Asked Nessa, clearly eager to get out to Mundy Head. Aren't we coming back here tonight? Yes, we do, Shellah answered. I don't like the look of that sky. If we're trapped on the island or blown out to sea, we're going to want our food and gear. Also, the weight on the bottom makes our little boat more stable, and we've got some open seas to paddle, bigger swells. What about the sail? Asked Jonas. Might that make the crossing quicker? We can't put the sail up. We'll need to keep a low profile to stay out of the sight of the reavers. Everyone grew silent at the mention of the reavers and quickly loaded the canoe. Soon they were off, paddling through the little inlet, through the sea cave tunnel, and back out towards the sea stacks. Shellah carefully skippered them north between the Auchendy cliff wall and the lofty pillars of the sea stacks. Under the overcast skies, the sea was eerie, glassy calm, only broken by free-floating rafts of kelp. They paddled in silence with the occasional cry of a seabird or bark of a seal to accompany them. From the bow, Lowell pointed to a black lump in the distance. There's Mundy Head. May this weather hold, said Shellah. The clouds grew darker on the horizon behind the head. Across slow rolling swells, they made their way through the open channel to the island, which only grew taller and more forbidding the closer they approached. Mundy Head was a flat-topped spike against the silver sky. Towering, shining ribs of slick black basalt formed the exterior walls of the volcanic plug. Shellah steered them towards the eastern side. Be careful, everyone. We need to enter the cave going in completely straight. If I remember correctly, the water is pretty shallow in the entry, and if we stove ourselves on a rock, we're stuck here until the reavers find us. That is, if the hogbowen don't get us first, Shellah warned, as they first came around towards the island's far side. Welcome to Finna's realm. As they turned, the opening of an enormous sea cavern yawned in the dark rock. Jonas and Nessa both gasped. A pointed archway in the stone soared hundreds of feet above them. Hexagonal blocks of broken basalt lined the sides of the cavern, and bolts of it hung down from the ceiling like a giant's black glass chandelier. Shellah and Lowell paddled the canoe into the cavern while Jonas and Nessa craned their heads upwards, dumbstruck. Let's find a good place to tie up before we get too deep in here, said Lowell from the bow as they eased their way further into the chasm. Shellah, I forget, is the entrance to the mounds inside the cave? Shellah thought for a moment. No, it's actually outside. We'll need to tie ourselves up to somewhere on the right. There should be a ledge that looks like a natural high dock, and we follow these blocks up and then outside the cave. They make some sort of steep natural staircase along a cliffside. Not that I went all the way up. They sidled up carefully to a likely-looking flat surface. As Lowell and Jonas held the boat steady against the ledge, Shellah jumped atop it. Toss me that rope, please. Jonas reached behind her to pass her the end of the rope at the stern. She looked to see if there was a good place relatively high up to tie it and found a sturdy broken column. After she secured the vessel, she returned to assist the others. Be careful, everyone. It's very slippery here. And depending on when we return, this might be underwater due to the tide. She looked out towards the slick stepping stones, which were the path up and out of the cave. But one problem at a time. If you are enjoying this story, please like and subscribe for the latest episodes. I aim to have fresh chapters here weekly. I hope to see you soon for our next episode.